Welcome back to the channel. I last spoke about the secret space programs and the significance they have had and will still have for humanity. This week I want to speak on a currently unfolding reality that is going to have severe consequences for Western civilizations. And it has to do with the humanitarian migration crisis that we have become, if I may use the term, somewhat used to. Any forced migration of people will have dire consequences for neighboring countries, as these governments have to house, feed and resettle those unfortunates who, usually through no fault of their own, have become the victims of political debauchery and in most cases are only trying to save their lives and find peace from their war-torn existence. In this century, we have seen a rise in these humanitarian crises. And the common citizen of countries not affected by this type of invasion cannot even begin to imagine why this is all happening and what solutions would circumvent the devastation that these vulnerable countries are experiencing. It is easy for those who are unaffected to sit back and enjoy their normal life, although that normalcy is changing for everyone in different ways. However, for those who suffer the migration impact, be it the many who flee their homes for unknown conditions in some foreign area, or be it the neighbouring country's governing bodies who must provide aid, or that country's residents who have to put up with the crime, danger from disease, and the need to be extra vigilant when they go about their normal business, it's a nightmare. As I mentioned, we have become desensitized to the idea of migrations, almost to the point where we just nod our heads and accept the news as one of the new phenomena that may be here to stay. And we glibly do this, while it has no tangible effect on our own lives, until it does. I want to make a declaration that our lives in the Western world could change very quickly in the near future, unless the dominant superpowers' governmental controllers are removed from office. I only hope this can be done, either through impeachment or the ballot box, and not through the common citizen rising up to wrest power, the control away from the illegal liberal regime that currently is ruining America and placing the whole continent in danger of anarchy. The real problem started in 2011 with the Syrian crisis, preempted by the Syrian civil war, with Turkey taking advantage by harboring the Free Syrian Army, offering them a safe zone and a base of operation. Together with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey has also provided the rebels with arms and military equipment. The provision, however, backfired on Turkey as bombs began raining down on civilian targets and killing innocent civilians. Turkey retaliated, further exacerbating the civil war in Syria. This led to Turkey using its open-door policy by forcing millions of its asylum seekers to flee across its borders to European countries. And so the migration into Europe began. Most of the EU countries closed their borders, which left Germany to take in most of them. This was known as the largest migration ever in modern times, and these asylum seekers are still causing huge headaches for their hosts. More recently, we have seen a mass migration of several million Afghans flee their homeland when the Taliban took the country back from US occupation in 2021. The 21st century has seen the evolution of the migration crisis into a politically motivated phenomenon, which is to be used for the future destabilization of vulnerable countries and vulnerable governmental economies, and all this is intended for the hostile takeover of these economies. But what we have seen in the past will pale in the face of what is still to come. You may say this is a conspiracy theory, and perhaps it is. But if you know history and you follow causal events, it becomes quite plain that something disastrous has been pre-planned for Western civilization. I absolutely hope that this entire scenario of which I'm about to speak of remains forever a theory. However, I can say that there is an event that is taking place on our continent that shows a clear intent of a weaponized migration, well planned, well orchestrated, and the current political administration of the world's dominant superpower is oblivious to what the real outcome will be. If this planned invasion is not checked in the very near future, the very, very near future, what is now just an inconvenience in certain border localities will escalate into havoc and destruction on a countrywide basis. The current administration is following the Wicked Enslavement Forum's agenda of locking the world down to a micromanaged group of slaves. For this administration, the time is quickly running out. For it to achieve its objective, that is, to inflict as much damage to the country's economy and infrastructure as possible. There is no consideration for the safety of the man in the street. Soon, gangs of violent, well-trained groups will make sure that the country becomes ungovernable, and the next step will be martial law. Freedom of movement will become non-existent. Another possible affliction is this. Every human within the country's borders will suffer the maximum impact of the hyperinflationary condition that has come about by the flagrant printing of money that is not coupled to anything other than the economy's strength to bail everyone out. We already know that the FDIC cannot hope to cover everyone's debt. Only the elite will be able to find a way. Prices for all commodities will continue to skyrocket until only the very rich can afford to feed themselves. It is a fact that this world-dominating superpower's middle class is already on its way to extinction, and there will be a domino effect on the rest of the Western world, many of which are reliant on the digitalized fiat dollar currency. This is a scenario that can be dispelled by using the term conspiracy theory. However, we all know that there is a strong indication that everything is changing toward a more totalitarian oversight of all the world's affairs. I'm reminded of the Christian Judeo scriptures that, despite the obvious obfuscation through centuries of council manipulation, still has much truth for the end times, which many of us believe is now upon us. The verse in the book of Revelation, chapter 6, verses 5 and 6, in the International Version states, "When the Lamb opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, 'Come.' I looked, and there before me was a black horse. Its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hands. Then I heard what sounded like a voice among the four living creatures saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and the wine." In short, the verses foretell that in the end of days, the price of a loaf of bread will cost a day's wages. If the world's high inflationary system is not checked, this is where we could all be sometime in the near future. Remember that fear is what humanity will experience when things get really tight. Fear that you may lose all that you have. Fear that you may lose your loved ones, and maybe even your own life. This is what the deep state is hoping for. Yes, there is a well-planned weaponized migration happening right at this very moment. All sorts of nationalities are involved. Some genuine asylum seekers, but also violent gang members with the intent of overthrowing the country's systems of self-protection. An internal civil war will have to be waged in order to stop it. You will not hear this being reported on any of the mainstream media outlets. Only the alternate media will bring you the real facts. So please arm yourself with knowledge, and when the conspiracy theory expression is used to deal with your pushback, you will know that the deep state is desperately trying to silence your voice. Well, that's all we have time for in today's presentation. But before we close, please remember to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons below. And thank you for watching my channel. Be sure to catch up with the latest material on this next viewing of the Spiritually Conscious Soul 101.